Hi, welcome to the Bay State Banner Conversations with the Publisher. I'm Ron Mitchell, and today our guest is Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She's running for re-election unopposed, and she's been traveling around our great nation on behalf of the Democratic Party in support of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and the full Democratic slate of candidates. So we want to welcome her to the Bay State Banner Studios.
Thank you.
And thank you for being our first guest here.
Beautiful. Beautiful to be home, and exciting to be here for this new chapter of the Banner.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for sitting down with me earlier in the week so we could get our front page story set about the Tim Walz and, of course, wonderful Kamala Harris campaign running across the country in your support. Share with us a little bit about what that was like traveling and being an advocate for the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm still traveling and still doing the work of building this broad and diverse coalition that we need to ensure that she is decisively elected. But being a surrogate is not new for me. I had the humbling honor as a city councilor to be a national surrogate in for presidential candidates, our Democratic nominees. And I'll say the difference that I find is that in 2016, in being a national surrogate for Hillary Clinton, she spoke a lot about the Supreme Court. And I think at that time, people didn't understand really what are the implications of the courts, because we had not experienced a Trump presidency and we had not experienced a weaponized Supreme Court. And so now, fast forward to 2024, where we have experienced the harm of a Trump presidency. We have experienced a weaponized Supreme Court with a disparate impact on the lives and livelihoods of Black Americans, whether you're talking about the overturning of Roe and putting us on track to a nation of forced birth, exacerbating the Black maternal morbidity crisis, whether you're talking about overturning 50 years of precedent when it comes to affirmative action in higher ed, or whether you're talking about their decision on minority business development agencies regarding access to capital. And so to campaign now, when we're on the precipice, if we do what we need to in these remaining days, of electing the first woman and the first woman of color as the President of the United States, it's
Sister.
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm excited, and it certainly is notable and meaningful. But I know it's going to be close. So just really focused on continuing to do the work, because the stakes are very high.
So coming off of the campaign this year, I think it was clear that we, as a populace, could not believe that all of these precedents could have been overturned. And I think that now that is a reality, and people understand the damage it can cause. The damage to women's health care with the Black morbidity crisis with new mothers, and the overall overturning of Roe v. Wade. Talk to us about, as you've been on the campaign in Pennsylvania and the other swing states, what are some of the things that the folks you're talking to are sharing with you about the importance of this election?
What I have found is that people are very clear about the stakes of this election, that the contrasts are very stark, that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to take this country back. And for Black folks, as we well know, when the rest of the country gets a cold, Black people get pneumonia. And you see that played out in black and white in Project 2025, this 922-page far right-wing manifesto that is really more than an extremist bucket list. It is a playbook. It's a playbook for harm to every person that calls this country home. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to control every aspect of people's lives, from the womb to the bedroom to the classroom. They want to ban books. They want to ban bodies. They want to ban words. They want to dismantle the federal government as we know it. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to restore our freedoms, freedoms that have been gutted and eroded by a weaponized Supreme Court. They want to expand upon those freedoms, and they're about the future. And what I have found has been most resonant with people is that they know that Kamala Harris not only wants to lighten their load by reducing the costs of housing and groceries and prescription drugs, but she also wants to make real people's aspirations and their dreams. And you see that in this opportunity economy. And in particular, this agenda that she's rolled out for Black men.
And I do want to elaborate on that a little bit more. I'd like for you to talk about the Kamala Harris's Build Back Better agenda and what some of these specific pillars are, because I understand that you've been working with the Vice President, I want to call her Senator, but you've been working with the Vice President since she was a Senator. You guys shared time on the Congressional Black Caucus together, and many of the programs that you designed in your legislation that came out in 2020 have been adopted in minor modifications. So let's talk about some of the specific things that the Kamala Harris-Walsh campaign and administration would bring to the people, to our community, to all people.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about those programs.
Well, first I just want to say I love that you don't know if you want to call her AG or if you want to call her Senator. Or Vice President, because it's a reminder that she is incredibly qualified.
She earned it.
To be the President of the United States of America. So she has put in that work. She is poised, she is prepared, she is qualified, and most of all, she's ready. And yes, you know, I've been in Congress now for 6 years. I serve on the Financial Services Committee, so I'm very focused on how do I improve the legacy of the Massachusetts 7th, in that it is one of the most unequal congressional districts in the country. We're in a 3-mile radius from Cambridge to Roxbury. Life expectancy drops by 30 years and median household income by $50,000. So I remain squarely focused on how do I change the legacy and improve outcomes across all issue areas. And so top of mind for me always is how to close the racial wealth gap, which is a $10.14 trillion crisis. So that's a problem for everybody, okay?
Yeah.
And Kamala Harris has been a great partner with me on many issues of consequence, from maternal justice to voting rights to housing justice, and combating and closing the racial wealth gap. And so we worked together at the height of COVID on legislation that was directly informed by the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, which told me at that time, when I was advocating for minority deposit institutions and community banks to be lenders of PPP, because in the first round of the payroll protection program to support small businesses and keeping their doors open during the pandemic, a lot of businesses did not benefit because our businesses bank with community banks. They don't bank with big banks. And so myself and Maxine Waters fought to diversify the vendors. And so I was doing these webinars with the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts to make sure people knew how to access those funds. And in having that conversation, folks said, listen, we're grateful for all of that, but the PPP, the economic injury disaster loans, but we don't need loans, we need grants. And so Kamala Harris and I, when she was a United States Senator, wrote a bill called Saving Our Street, that would have provided $124.5 billion in grants to small businesses, to micro businesses, to businesses historically underrepresented, and grants as much as hundreds of thousands of dollars you could go. And so the tenets of that bill are now one of the key tenets of her opportunity agenda for Black men. And so I want to say that, you know, in that she remains committed to meeting us at our aspirations, at closing the racial wealth gap, and making sure that people that have an idea for a small business, that they can bring that to fruition. And for existing small businesses, that they can continue to thrive. This agenda that she has, the Opportunity Agenda for Black Men, is resonant with me. 2 years ago, I started an effort called Ayanna for Black Men. Most elected officials have groups that are for them. I started a group that is for Black men, because I recognize that Black men needed more centering, more visibility, more agency in spaces. And I wanted to create these curated spaces for joy, community building, and power building. And so Kamala Harris recognizes the power of Black men, the contributions of Black men, and also believes, like I do, that Black men deserve to grow old and that Black boy joy should be a rite of passage. So you see all of that enumerated in this Opportunity Agenda for Black Men, which is about also addressing those disparate issues that impact Black men, from prostate cancer to colon cancer to diabetes. And again, supporting Black business.
Well, thank you. Let's talk just a little bit about the agenda that you have for Black women and women all overall. I know that there is a major healthcare crisis among women, especially with the new national agenda that the Republicans have put forward. And I know that you have some very specific programs that you've designed to address those issues. So share with us some of your new programs that you have helped to have funded over the past couple of years, and that you look forward to rolling out in your new term coming up.
Well, I'll just say that I define health holistically. So for me, it's about the ecosystem of an entire community and not just access to and delivery of healthcare services. So let me speak to that, more broadly. So again, I'm very focused on how to close the racial wealth gap. And so I've delivered $35 million in community project funding, and those investments range from tuition-free community college to fare-free transit, to climate resiliency, to combating substance use disorder, to more affordable housing, to workforce development.
So addressing health from a holistic way.
Addressing health
folks
holistically.
Resources.
And supporting our small businesses. And Black women remain the fastest growing constituency of Black entrepreneurs. So I was very proud to have delivered a $1 million investment to the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts to support technical assistance and capacity building. Also ACEDONE, which focuses on many of our African-owned businesses. So when I think of health, I'm thinking about the community holistically. Another issue that disparately impacts Black women is we are the most educated and carry the most debt. And so I was the lead negotiator in the House on student debt cancellation, working very closely with Senator Warren and Leader Schumer. And I'm very proud of that work because I believe in doing the hard work of consensus building, not just consensus seeking. And student debt cancellation was an issue that people tried to marginalize and fringe. And we worked effectively to mainstream that issue, to prove that it is a $2 trillion crisis. It is an economic justice issue, a racial justice issue, an intergenerational issue. How many Black parents took out loans so their babies could go to school, and they're still paying on their own loans? It's a racial justice issue because Black students borrow and default at higher rates because Black folks have been locked out of every major federal relief program in this country. So even where there have been gains in income, we haven't seen those gains in wealth. And so again, when I think about the health of Black women, the fact that they carry the most debt is burdensome and puts their life in a chokehold in many ways. And so we pushed Biden to take executive action to address this issue that would have brought relief to 43 million borrowers and would have canceled out debt for 1 in 4 Black borrowers. The Supreme Court stopped that action, but we didn't stop pushing, we didn't stop fighting. Consequently, there are some 600,000 borrowers in the Commonwealth who have benefited from targeted relief, like the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. So many Black educators and nurses and first responders and people who were paying a mortgage before they had a mortgage. Now, because their debt has been zeroed out or reduced considerably in many cases, either through the income-driven repayment program or just wholesale cancellation, they are now able to purchase a home, to build wealth, or to use those monies towards other essential things. Massachusetts is the most expensive in the country when it comes to child care. That's a family stabilization issue, that's a workforce issue. It's another reason why I'm supporting Kamala Harris for president, because she knows we need to build and invest in the infrastructure of a care economy. And that's everything from universal child care to paid leave. And
now
then
your baby bond project that you've been working on with Cory
yeah,
Booker.
thank you for naming that as well.
Share
I'll
with
talk
us a little
about
bit
that too, but I do want to say one thing on the physical health of women, because I can't leave that out of this. So 2 things very quickly. Reproductive rights and freedom, abortion access, maternal justice. To be a Black woman and to give birth and to do it safely, that should be a right and not a privilege. And so we know that this is a matter of life and death. It's about everything from abortion access to IVF, to birth control and contraceptives, to medication abortion. So all of those issues that affect the reproductive rights and freedom of Black women, I continue to lead on. And in fact, the bill that will codify Roe on the federal level is a bill that I'm a lead sponsor on, called the Women's Health Protection Act. So when Kamala Harris says, I will restore Roe, and that's one of her first priorities, in order to do that, Congress will have to pass a bill. And the bill that is currently in the queue is a bill for which I am a lead sponsor. The other issue that I want to name, it's the last thing on women's health, is I've used the power of the letterhead to call on the FDA to ban the use of formaldehyde in chemical hair
products,
straightening products. This is a matter of public health. We know we need to pass the Crown Act federally because of race-based hair discrimination, right? These issues are all connected. The Massachusetts legislature did pass the Crown Act, but still black women, just for how we show up in the world, experience great discrimination. You might not be able to get an interview or get a promotion or get a raise simply because you're wearing your hair in a protective hairstyle, because you're wearing an afro or locks or braids or a wig or weaves. We all get to show up in the world exactly as we are. We should be, without fear and without discrimination. Yes. So if you recognize that, that means that more women feel, black women feel they have no choice for their own economic mobility than to chemically straighten their hair. And there is formaldehyde in the majority of those relaxers and those products that has resulted in higher rates of uterine and ovarian cancer in black women. And because of my advocacy in partnership with another black woman of Congress, Shontel Brown of Ohio, the FDA is now in an aggressive rulemaking process to ban formaldehyde. Okay, now baby bonds, that's also about our families and about our economic health and prosperity. And I think it'll go a long way. It's gaining great traction throughout the country. It hasn't passed federally, but states throughout the country have passed this, and it creates a bond when a baby is born. The Treasury pays into that for the next 18 years, and at the age of 18, you can withdraw those funds. And our projections are that it could be anywhere from $18,000 to $24,000. But there's only 3 permissible uses, and you have to have graduated high school. And the 3 permissible uses are that you can use those funds to purchase a home to build wealth. You can use those funds to pursue higher education, or you can use those funds to open a small business, also to build wealth. So it's called the American Opportunity Accounts Act, but the shorthand version of it is baby bonds, and we have seen Connecticut, California, there's several other
states that have already adopted it.
That have already adopted this, and so although Senator Booker and I will have to reintroduce the bill and continue to build consensus to pass it on the federal level, I'm very encouraged that there is momentum in states throughout the country, and this will go a long way again in closing the racial wealth gap.
We're fastly approaching our voting day. We're within 2 weeks, and some folks around the country, many folks have already started voting. So can you share with all of our viewers what you feel is really important about how they can get out to vote and help to encourage the Democratic ticket to win all the way up and down the ballot?
Yeah. Well, first let me just say that I know that voters tire of being told this is the most important election of our lifetime, because you hear that every cycle. But the truth is, every election is the most important election of your lifetime, because who you vote for will determine who's elected, and who's elected determines the policies. And the policies determine everything. People think of policy as this sort of static, abstract thing, but policies are animated in your life every day. They're all around you. So like when people say, I'm not into politics, I don't do politics. Well, politics is doing you every day, because every aspect of your life is touched by policy. So who you vote for determines who's elected. Who's elected determines the policies. The policies determine who lives, who dies, who survives, and who thrives. So every election matters. And I'm very humbled that I'll be sharing a ballot with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and along with my colleagues in the state legislature. So I want to say that it is important to vote and participate in state elections. Many of those issues that keep you up, late at night are determined in the state legislature. So make sure you're voting for your state rep, your state senator, your member of Congress, your United States senator, and then of course that you are voting for vice president and president respectively. Pay attention to the entire ballot, and also make sure that you look at the front and the back, because there are usually ballot questions, very important ballot questions that are on the back as well. But it's important to vote because it's an act of self-care. It's important to vote because when you vote, you're not only voting for you. So I want you to think about who's someone that you love like crazy, that you would run through a wall to make sure that they're safe. that they're okay, that they're healthy, that they're happy, that they're not choosing between rent, groceries, and prescription drugs. Whoever that person is, whoever you love that much that you would be ready and willing to run through a wall to make sure they're okay, that's how I need you to run to the polls.
Because that's who you're voting for.
That is who you're voting for.
You're voting for the food assistance, you're voting for the opportunities, you're voting for the policies that will allow individuals to grow
Absolutely.
in our community to
So you're
prosper.
voting for you, and you're voting for your neighbor, and you're voting for your community, and you're voting for the very integrity and preservation at this time of our democracy. Listen, January 6th, I was in my office with my husband, barricading a door, crawling around on the floor in the dark. I know how close we came, how
Very
close
scary.
we came to almost losing it all.
Yeah. And then to have the former president claim that it was a good day and that it was just people loving on the.
Well,
just
listen,
crazy.
Donald
Yeah.
Trump.
We know what
Donald
we don't
Trump
have to focus on.
traffics in hate and racist tropes and a politic of revenge and retribution. You know, someone who wants to terminate the Constitution, who says he'll be a dictator on day one, is not anyone that should be in close proximity to the Oval Office ever again. In fact, I don't even call him a former president, I call him the former occupant, because that's all he did was occupy the space.
Yeah.
He is unpredictable, and he is unfit to be the president of the United States of America. And I want to say this as well. We do not elect saviors. You elect partners. So think about that when you go to the ballot box. Who do you want to be your partner? Perfection should not be what you're looking for. There's not an elected official that you're going to agree with 100% of the time on every policy and everything. If you're looking for that, then you should run yourself, okay?
Yeah.
So you're not electing a savior. You are electing at every level of government who you choose to be your partner. And part of partnership is accountability. So hold us accountable. You know, push. I know that I will push. So people need to recognize that perfection is not on the ballot, but progress is. Progress is. And I want us to have that opportunity economy where every worker and family model and individual has an opportunity to participate. And I've got something else I want. You know, when we talk about entitlements, we talk about Social Security and Medicare. I want us to have the entitlement of joy. And it's the type of joy that you can have when you know that you and your babies are going to be okay, that you could dare to have an idea and make good on it, that you could purchase a home in the community that raised you, that you can show up in the world exactly as you are without fear and without discrimination, that you have a life that is free from the threat of gun violence in your community, you know, at your mosque, your church, your school. I think we deserve to have joy as an entitlement, and we deserve freedom, and we deserve a future. And I know in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will have that.
Well, that is a wonderful sentiment, and Black joy is important to our community.
Yes,
so I want
it
to thank
is.
you for being a big advocate of Black joy around the country, and especially in Massachusetts, for all of your career as a city councilor and then as a congresswoman. Black joy is important to our people, and it is our superpower. It
Yes,
definitely
it
is, and it has
is.
gotten our ancestors through, and today we are at a threshold where the decision for how our country is going to move forward is in our hands.
Yes, it
and we have to
is.
vote, we have to stand up, we have to work together, we have to reach out for our neighbors.
Vote like it is your black job, y'all.
That's right. Vote
Vote
like your
as
life
if
depends
lives
on it
depend
because
on
it
it,
does.
because it does.
It does. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us here in our new studios,
Thank
the Bay State Banner
you.
Streaming Studios in
It's
John Elliott
beautiful.
Square.
It's beautiful.
Thank
I'm
you.
grateful to you and the whole team. And this is a historic happening. And you know, the banner reflects history, and it tells our stories. And today, the banner is making history.
Well, thank you so much.
You know,
Yeah.
so I look forward to coming back.
Well, we look forward to having you after the election, and we can talk about the next steps on a federal level as we move forward. So
You got
thank you
it.
so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, thank you.
I'm Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and you're watching the Bay State Banner's Conversations with the Publisher. Hi, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here, and I'm with the Bay State Banner Conversations with the Publisher.